Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Wednesday, October the 18th. And welcome to our commentary. Everybody around here is excited about the Rangers and the Astros tonight. Game 3 of the series. We'll probably have more to say about it tomorrow. But, I mean, everybody's crazy right now, baseball crazy around here. And this team is playing so well that it makes it very easy to get crazy about the Rangers. They have now won 7 consecutive postseason games. You know, they beat the Rays 2-0. They beat the Orioles 3-0, meaning they swept both of those teams. And now they won the first 2 against Houston. So obviously the series is not over. Nobody is around here, at least I'm not. You never discount a team like the Astros, who have been in the World Series 4 times in the last 6 years, and they have some of the best players in the game. So you never discount a team like that. But you got to love what the Rangers are doing. I mean, it's just absolutely great. So around 7 o'clock tonight, that's what I'll be doing. I'll be following the Rangers and the Astros on television. One of the great things, of course, is when you have a team in the postseason, whatever sport it is, but, you know, baseball, of course, being a major sport, there's a lot of excitement. People get together to watch the game. People go to the bars and watch the game. I mean, it's just a lot of excitement. It sort of brings the community together in a way that very few things do. Very few things do. It really brings people together. And that's the fun part, sort of the off the field fun of the game itself. So 7 o'clock tonight, we'll be following the Rangers, and hopefully they win again. But, you know, again, they're playing a very tough team. Houston, that's a tough team. And you don't assume anything. You don't take anything for granted with a team that good. Well, now on to some of the serious stuff. And there's a lot of serious stuff in the world today. I mentioned yesterday that I thought it was a mistake to send President Biden to Israel. He's not physically up to it. You know, I think it would have been better if they had sent a delegation. I mean, I understand the reason he went, in the sense that I understand that we want to show maximum support for Israel at a time like this. So I understand that. I don't have a problem with the intention of showing that support, but he's not the man to do it. I hate to say it. He is the president, but he's not the man to do it. And as soon as he got there and you saw him physically go through the meetings and the conferences and all of that, this is obviously a man, he was tired. And of course he would be tired. He just flew from Washington, D.C. to Tel Aviv. And even, you know, as elegant and comfortable as Air Force One is, you still have about a 6 or 7 hour difference, maybe more, that you have to overcome. And that will take its toll on you, even if you're younger. That takes its toll on you. Here's an 81, almost 82-year-old man who is already slow to begin with. And you watch him go through the stuff. I mean, when he was having that one-on-one with the Prime Minister of Israel, you could tell he was reading everything. This is not a good image for the country. Not a good image at all. And I feel bad. I actually feel bad for him because, where was the First Lady here? This would have been a great opportunity for the First Lady to step up and say, no, don't do that to him. Send somebody else. You know, Mrs. Reagan used to do that with President Reagan. Mrs. Reagan would be constantly battling with the White House chief of staff or whoever was planning the president's schedule to make sure that they wouldn't overwork him, make sure that they understood that he was not only a man in his late 70s, but also a man who had been shot and had gone through all of that. And I'm a little surprised. I'm really surprised that the First Lady didn't stand up and say, no, please don't do this. He's not the man. It's too much for him physically. That is too much for him. And it is. It is too much for him. They should have sent a delegation. And when you see him, you know, reading things and talking about things, he started telling a story. And then, I don't know, it's like all of a sudden he forgot what he was saying. And then he says, well, I'll tell you later, or something like that. And again, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing because you're talking about the president of the United States. This is not, you know, some meaningless position. He's the president of the United States. And at a time like this, you really have to project some strength, because you've got some pretty bad people on the other side who are only going to be impressed if you're super strong against them. They're only going to be impressed if you show that you are stronger than they are. Now, we are militarily, of course, stronger, but you don't want to get to that level. You want to be able to avoid any kind of military entanglement. You don't want to do that in the Middle East. You don't want to be sending American Marines into Palestine or whatever to rescue Americans, or into Lebanon to rescue Americans at the embassy. There was that fear last night that the embassy was being, surrounded by a bunch of people. Thankfully, the government of Lebanon protected the embassy like they're supposed to. But again, last night when I went to sleep, I had no idea what I was going to wake up to around the world, all these embassies and all this craziness. Now, President Biden is on his way back, and I hope he takes a pretty good rest when he gets back. I don't think he will, because the events are unfolding in such a frightening speed over in Israel. Well, let's talk a little bit about this other story of the week, and that's the so-called hospital that was hit. When this first happened, when the story first broke, my initial reaction was skepticism. And the reason that I reacted with skepticism is that I have a friend here. I haven't seen him in a long time, but I used to office here in Dallas about 10 or 15 years ago with a gentleman who used to fly in the Israeli Air Force. And we would often talk, about the conflict over there. And I asked him one time, how difficult is it for the Israeli pilots to do your job? And he said, very difficult, because we have very strict orders of not attacking civilians. And sometimes, they would have a target, but they would have to skip the target or go back because the target was full of children and women. This is what they do. That's what Hamas does. They hide behind children and women, or they put their bombs in a school or a hospital, or whatever it may be. So when the story first broke of the hospital bombing and 500 people dead and all that kind of stuff, I was very skeptical of it. I didn't believe it. Honestly, I just didn't believe it. I said, I got to hear more information. First of all, why would Israel hit a hospital? Not by mistake they could, I understand that. But why would they hit a hospital knowing everything that they were going to get for hitting that hospital? So I was very skeptical of the story. Well, now it turns out that it was not hit by an Israeli missile. It was apparently an accident or something they did to themselves. And now I understand it wasn't even the hospital that got hit. It was the parking lot. So the whole thing that was being broadcast coming out of the region yesterday, and many members of the media were talking about this, the whole thing is not what we heard. I mean, the whole thing was a farce. There was no Israeli attack in the hospital. The Israelis did not kill 500 people, and so on and so on. You had members of Congress actually going before the microphones and blaming the Israelis for these civilian casualties. So, the moral of the story in that part of the world, the moral of the story is you have to really be careful what you listen to when something is happening in the Middle East. You got to be very skeptical. When you first hear about it, you got to be very skeptical. And remember, there are some people who are trying to mislead you. There are some people who are trying to mislead you. And that's how I look at things. I don't believe them. When the stories first came out, I'm very skeptical. And my skepticism in this particular case turned out to be correct. Israel did not hit a hospital and kill 500 people. How it happened? Well, they're sort of finding out. But it was not the Israelis who dropped these bombs and killed 500 people. So those members of Congress who are making these outrageous statements yesterday need to come out and apologize. And the media should force them to at least address the question, because they were peddling a lot of lies yesterday on this particular day. I have a post coming out on Thursday, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in another video, but I have a post coming out Thursday post over at the American Thinker, coming out Thursday about mortgages and how more and more Americans are losing their homes. Now, there's a variety of reasons. I go into it in the post that I wrote. But a lot of reasons. One of the big reasons, by the way, is that many people who were not paying college loans over the last couple of years are now going to have to pay those loans back, and that could put many of them in a negative cash flow, and many of them are going to be probably losing their homes. The article points out that this is going to get worse before it gets any better. That is, all these people losing their homes in the country. So you keep hearing about Biden economics is good, Biden economics is working, but then you look at the reality. Well, the reality is that people are losing their homes. The reality is that the price of rent is going up. The reality is that the price of food is going up. Wholesale inflation just went back up in September. The reality is that more and more Americans are going into delinquency when it comes to car loans and consumer loans. So no, Biden economics is not working. I don't care how much they tell you that it is, it's not. And I think it's about time that we started telling the truth and talking about the fact that the economy is not doing well, and the anxiety that people feel is perfectly correct in feeling that way. I guess we don't have a speaker yet, so we'll wait for the next time they vote. This is ridiculous, by the way, as I mentioned before. This is completely ridiculous that the Republicans have put themselves in this boat. I am very angry at the Republican Party for allowing this to happen. We have a majority in the House. Let's start acting like a majority, and let's start working together, not against each other. We're not going to help us when we're working against each other. A couple of things on this day, on this birthday, on this day in history. First of all, we remember a lady by the name of Barbara Billingsley. You probably remember her as June Cleaver, the mother on that great show Leave It to Beaver. She was the Beaver's mom and Wally's mom, and one of the greatest television moms of all time. So June Cleaver, who was born Barbara Billingsley, was born on this day in 1920, I believe, passed away in 2010. And we also remember one of the great grandfathers of rock, Chuck Berry, who was born in St. Louis on this day in 1926. He passed away in 2017. If you listen to rock and roll music, if you like rock and roll music, and especially if you like the rock and roll guitar, then you know who Chuck Berry is. He was the greatest. I think it was John Lennon who said that Chuck Berry invented rock and roll. Yes, he did. Elvis put it on the radio. No denying that. But I think it was Elvis who really invented rock and roll. Thank you for listening. Have a wonderful day, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas. Go Rangers. And go Rangers. I'll say it again. Bye-bye, everybody, and thank you for listening.